What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. Joined by Matt Money Smith, as always. We're a couple of weeks away from the NFL draft in Las Vegas. Money doing some punter work this morning. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct. Watching punters getting ready for the draft. Even specialists got to be covered because we do draft recap after every single round. So when a punter goes off the board, got to be able to have a little bit of working knowledge with them. So been working on that all morning. About the last hour, I've watched punters from the likes of Matt Araiza that everybody knows, Jordan Stout from Penn State, and got a modern day kid in the draft this year. Stonehouse, his dad, his grandfather were both D1 punters. He does it for the Rams, and maybe he's a potential option to bring in as an undrafted free agent. And saw a couple other guys that are impressive. Camarda out of Georgia has got just crazy hang time. Punter's interesting, right? Because if you got a good, when I did the Pat McAfee show a month ago, when I was out there doing the Big Ten tournament, I went in and we brought up Araiza. And did I mention this already on a
No,
Chargers
I don't think
pod?
so. Please do, though.
So
by the way, your appearances there have been very, very strong.
Yeah. So he made a great point. Obviously, Pat's one of the greatest punters that ever played in the NFL. And he made a great point. He said, look, you're going to draft Araiza if you've got a great defense. He's like, that's where the punter value is. He goes, if your defense sucks, what's the point of having a guy that can boot it inside the 5 when the first play that they come out and take a snap goes for 15 yards? You've negated your value of the punter. He's like, so as far as like which teams would draft and use, serious draft equity, and by that I mean like a third or a fourth to draft the punter, he goes, you're probably looking at a team with an incredible defense, and that's how they're going to play. So they're going to put value there. So, I just kind of think about the Chargers and how good they are on offense and what they've tried to do here defensively in the offseason and all the money they have spent on J.C. Jackson and Sebastian Day and Austin Johnson. And, we're going to talk about a couple other guys that they just signed. But, like, to me, that might make sense. It may be something that they've circled as, okay, our offense is sizzling. We feel like we've filled the holes we need to fill on defense. They've already got, they trade for Khalil Mack. They've got Joey Bosa. They've got Derwin James. Now they signed J.C. Jackson and those two defensive linemen. And it's like, maybe it's something we got to talk about. Maybe punter is in the conversation especially because they have, if you look at the way the Chargers draft picks stack up, they've got those lates. They've got those 4 7ths and 2 6ths. So many of these punters that could end up as just, undrafted free agents. You can use one of those 4 7ths on the guy that you like and not have to cross your fingers that maybe the guy you like decides to join you as an undrafted free agent because he knows he's competing for a gig.
Well, I know I'm glad you're looking at punters plural, because when we say punter, the only name I've really heard is Matt Araiza from down in San Diego. And that's the guy who you probably won't get in the 7th round, right, Money? Right. Like this is a guy in the middle of the rounds. It's probably going to come off the board.
Yeah, I think there's just so much heat on him. He's so different than anybody you've ever seen. He's got a just colossal leg. I mean, he kicks the hell out of the ball. But I was chatting with Lance Zierlein a little bit earlier this morning because he does all the draft bios and the grades for NFL.com. So when you click on a name and you pull up the bio, it's Lance that put that whole thing together, and he watches everything himself. So I just kind of shot him a note and said, I want to bounce a couple names off you. What do you think? And I was kind of happy that we both agreed. I said, I think Jordan Stout's the best punter in the draft. And he said, absolutely. And not that I'm some sort of punter expert. It's just whatever.
We're coming out the gates hot though on punt talk.
I know. We'll clip it with this. All I'm saying is the Chargers got 6 picks in the final 2 rounds. And I think that's for people because it just seems like the Charger fans are like, oh, we need the punt god. We need Matt Araiza. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work out. Yeah, he's San Diego State. He's a local guy, but I don't know if that's the way that they'll approach it. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they use one of those 6 picks in the 6th and 7th round to take a swing on one of these guys.
It's a position that the Chargers will have to figure out as they put this puzzle together.
Yeah. My guy's Blake Hayes, 24-year-old Aussie out of Illinois. He's a lefty, directional. Oh, my God, he kicks the hell out of the ball. I love him. So that's the guy that I ended up gravitating to.
All right. Clip that just in case.
Just in case.
you know?
Just in case.
Speaking of the AFC West, the big news this week, Derek Carr going to be in the division for a little bit longer. Signed a 3-year extension, $121.5 million. So Derek gets paid. Josh McDaniels clearly has his guy. I don't know if there was really any debate. Maybe there was a little bit at the beginning of the tenure of McDaniels. Is Carr going to be the guy moving forward? But now we know the Raiders are pretty set. Devontae Adams in the mix, and Carr's not going anywhere. I believe he's the longest tenured quarterback in the division.
Look, I think the incoming that Derek took, throughout his career was warranted. He did not want to hold the ball. He wanted to get it out quick. You'd see the sizzle reel of, fourth down plays where he's throwing it in the dirt or he's throwing it away, or third downs where he's not even giving his receivers a chance and just getting rid of the ball. And that was just the way he operated. And I think it warranted some of the criticism of him. But the last 2 years, he's been so much better. For whatever reason, he just, especially last year, he really got out and started letting plays develop downfield. And a lot of that could have been the talent that's around him. And when you have Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, who are just such tough covers, I get it. Get the ball out. If Darren breaks press immediately and you see him in the seam and he's going to get you 10 yards after the catch, then go get it. But I think in order to just kind of free up the offense and get that defense to honor the deep ball, you had to start taking some shots. And I felt like he did that last year. I'm not surprised he got the extension. I do think they were one of the teams sniffing around on Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford last year. And when none of those were able to be put together, they probably just sort of looked at, kind of what was available in the draft, what's available free agency or trade wise in that second tier of quarterbacks. And we're like, you know what, this guy's pretty freaking good. And is starting to win some games. So why not? I think the one thing that also jumps out to me though, Chris, is how expensive quarterbacks are. Like, Derek's a really good quarterback. I don't think he's an elite quarterback. I think he's the fourth best quarterback in the division. So the fact that guy's making $41 million a year, lets you know why teams like the Chargers and the Bengals and the Dolphins, that have these young quarterbacks they believe in. I think the Dolphins believe in too, are pushing so much money into free agency and doing everything they can to draft players that maybe have higher floors and lower ceilings to just try to win right now. So you don't have to do, what the Chiefs are doing. And that's trading away guys like Tyreek Hill because you got Patrick Mahomes on a $45 million a year contract that just kicked in.
And, Deshaun Watson, $230 million guaranteed. That's going to change the game.
It's a disaster
for these quarterbacks. Yeah, it is. And the fact that Lamar Jackson is up, there's been some talk about that. All things considered, I think it's a pretty good deal for the Raiders to get a guy for, it's really till 2025, so, you're really kind of betting these next 3 to 4 years on Derek Carr. He brings in his buddy Devontae Adams, and you have a new coaching staff. And a lot of people think Josh McDaniels is going to be a pretty good coach his second time around. So
yeah, look, he's a great offensive coach. There's no denying that. He had personality issues, personal clashes with players in Denver. And they did not do him any favors by giving him the keys to the kingdom and letting him run the draft and build the roster. I think that maybe created a little bit of that. Oh, I'm the ultimate authority and everybody will answer to me and this thing will operate solely as I dictate. Now, he did bring his guy with him, so he certainly, looks to be in a Pete Carroll, John Schneider-like situation where even though Schneider's the GM, you still feel like Pete has ultimate say, and maybe that's the case with McDaniels, but he's a great coach. And look, we talk all about Keenan and Mike and Austin Eckler and Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Albert O and Javonte Williams. Man, the Raiders got a nasty group of players. If we're talking to Coach Hill and Coach Staley about what are you going to do about Darren Waller, Renfrow, and Devontae Adams, they're like, who the hell knows what we're going to do about that? So yeah, that's going to be another offense. It's going to be a nightmare to try to slow down.
Yeah, and they have a running game too, and Josh Jacobs too, to kind of control the offense. I want to put this out there. I love the fact that the schedule release is in May now because it kind of spreads out the offseason. And I want the Chargers to play the Raiders on Sunday Night Football in Week 1 and start the 2022 season the way it ended. That's all I'm going to say. I want that to happen.
Yeah, so I've been trying to think. I've been thinking about this a little bit, and Amazon does not get the first Thursday night game. NBC, of course, gets it. It's the kickoff of the season, but they get one in week 2. And my guess is they want one of these AFC West games to get this. There's just too much heat on that division for a huge deal. A paradigm shift in the stream only game and how much money the NFL can make is they're getting ready to maybe sell, getting ready to sell Sunday Ticket and Red Zone. And if Amazon, if it leaks out that they do a big number and that Prime subscriptions are up, that's only going to help the NFL. And that helps everybody. When the NFL gets more money, the players get more money, everything, So I think I wouldn't be surprised if it's, because look, the Chargers and Chiefs games have been incredible. Every single one of them since Herbert became the starter.
Yeah, no doubt.
The Chargers Raiders week 18 is still fresh in everybody's mind. Is the best game that they watched in the regular season. It wasn't quite as good as the Bills Chiefs divisional round, but it was arguably the best. Not to mention what they did against the Browns and the Steelers. So I think the Chargers are probably in that, and plus, the guy that runs that Thursday Night Football, Mike Mariano, was a longtime executive at NFL Network. He's lived here in LA for a long time, so he knows the star power Justin Herbert's. I'm thinking week 2,
okay,
Chargers Thursday Night Football to kick off the Amazon exclusive season. I think that's going to be the case.
I like that, and it's acceptable because Al Michaels, it'd be his first game, right? So his last regular season game would have been that Chargers Raiders game. I just think that would be an awesome way to start the 2022 season. The way that it ended, and maybe the Chargers get a little bit of revenge. Hey, we've talked about Carr, and DJ had a great tweet this week. When you see the cost of quarterbacks and running backs on the open market,
wide receivers.
What's that?
Cost of wide receivers, quarterbacks, wide receivers. You said running backs. All good.
It's not running backs. It's wide receivers. You're right. When you see the cost of quarterbacks and wide receivers on the open market, it makes drafting in first round and gaining 5 years of control very enticing. If the grades are close, teams are going to lean in that direction. And it just made me think of the Chargers at 17. And even though this is a down quarterback year, 2 or 3 quarterbacks could go before the Chargers at 17, or maybe there is something around, man. I saw the Saints and the Eagles, they're like surrounding the Chargers there at 17. The fact that we've talked about guys like Jameson Williams and Olave and Garrett Wilson and Treylon Burks, all these wide receivers, Drake London, that could lead the Chargers to maybe getting the cornerback they want in Derek Stingley or McDuffie or the right tackle of the future. I mean, you think of these positions, the Chargers are set at quarterback, and frankly, they have a Pro Bowl wide receiver, and they just paid one to be a Pro Bowl wide receiver. So I get maybe looking in that direction, but there's a lot of needs on this team, and it looks to be setting up pretty nicely for them to get an immediate starter at 17 overall money.
I think one of the things they've done such a great job of is, and yes, they still need to sort out the right side of the line, but we talked about this last week. I don't think we need to rehash it. Just the idea that you can kick Matt Filer out. And, if you re-sign Ode Ibushi, now you're looking for an interior lineman. And those are much easier to find than tackles, right? So if you feel good about Filer going to right tackle, then that frees you up, right? Point being, signing the 2 tackles, signing a corner, and making sure Mike Williams came back, you now truly can do best player available. Like that's fine. If it's a wide receiver, great. If it's a corner, great. If Kyle Hamilton somehow tumbles down the draft board and you're thinking about Derwin and Kyle, and one of them's in the box and one of them's up high on every single snap, holy God, that's so all of those things are. And look, if one of the tackles happens to slip, if Trevor Penning's there, we've talked about that. If Charles Cross is there, I think they'll grab him. There's just, one of the things that's always fascinating about the draft. And when you go back and you start digging through draft history, there's certain positions that you find that rarely raise their hand outside of the first round. And of all of them, tackle's one of them. Most of your elite tackles are drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
It's rare when you get an elite tackle in the 3rd or the 4th. Those are guys those are your Trey Pipkins. that you're taking your big swings. Now, every now and then you'll find one at the top of the second because, like you just talked about, positional value, quarterbacks, you end up getting 5 quarterbacks get taken in the first round, and then you have a tackle that maybe slides out. But like, to me, I think that's the other interesting part of when you're sitting in that draft room and you've got your 10 minutes. Okay, what does the depth look like on this position? We don't pick again until the 3rd round. If you're the Chargers, if we don't take our tackle here and we feel like we need some depth, and here's Trevor Penning or Cross staring at us, I think that's that. Then, you have the luxury of doing that, and if you feel good about Filer at right tackle, then you can stare at that wide receiver that we've talked about. Is it Olave? Is it Jameson Williams? If he's sitting there, that you can draft. Does a corner slide? You talked about that. Will McDuffie, even though he passes every single test and checks every box because he's 5'10 and a half, 5'11", does that cause that little bit of a slip to 17 and he's there? I think Stingley's going to go. I think in the top 10. I think so.
The pro day probably sealed it.
Pro day was exceptional. It's going to come down to team medical. And I would assume, if the Chargers team medical is going to pass him and want him at 17, there's going to be another team medical that passes him and is like, no, this is a top 5 talent, at a premium position, and he'll end up going. So, I'm glad you mentioned it, the tweet from DJ, because look, if you end up getting 4 wide receivers that go and you get, let's just say, 2 quarterbacks, I mean, now essentially you're picking 11th when you're talking about D linemen, offensive linemen, and corners. And when you think about the
edge guys, I mean, there's gonna be a ton of edge guys going too. That it'd be nice to get another edge guy, but when you got Mack and Bosa to start you off, you're okay.
And I thought Chris Rumpf flashed last year, and so did Gaziano when he was, so I think, I do think they're in a position to just go straight best player. And that's, I agree with DJ, man. I can't watch these quarterbacks and come to the conclusion. And, obviously DJ's, a former scout and a front office guy, and he's been doing this forever. So he knows, what he sees a heck of a lot better than what I see. I don't even know what the hell I'm looking at half the time, but like, I've watched quarterbacks every year long enough to know when I'm watching Kenny Pickett and Howell and Matt Corral and, like the guy that I like most out of all of them is Desmond Ridder. And I said that when we were at the combine, like just standing next to him. He's a little thin. He's a little narrow shouldered. Right?
Yeah.
The Cincinnati guy. Yeah. But like that guy looks the part. And I know DJ tweeted that out too, when the Saints made that trade, that he was talking to a GM that thought maybe they're sweet on Ridder. And that may be the guy they go up to get. Because he's starting to get a little bit of heat on him.
I mean, I'm looking at the order of the draft money starting at 15. Philly, New Orleans, Chargers, Philly, New Orleans. Something weird's going to happen before or after the Chargers pick. I have a feeling that somebody's going to package these picks, or I don't know. Maybe the Chargers are involved somehow. Maybe they move back. Maybe they move up. I don't know. But when you have 2 teams that are surrounding you at 15, 16, 18, and 19, it's going to lead to a lot of intrigue. And I think the Chargers are in a great position to stick and pick, or maybe get that 2nd round pick back and trade back from the Khalil Mack deal.
100%. Like that. The one thing that I would be concerned about the Chargers being able to trade. So it goes 2 ways, right? One, the Saints and the Eagles each have the pick in front of them and the pick behind them.
Yeah.
So let's just say they get the guy they want. And they know that Philly and New Orleans are shopping those picks now, and that maybe, okay, we traded up to get these 2. And we got excited about who we might get at 18. But now let's see if we can recoup, that next year's first rounder or something, since we absolutely got our guy at 6, whatever. So that's going to happen for someone to trade into the Chargers spot, because no one's going to want 17 if they know that clearly Philadelphia looks to be content with Jalen Hurts. And they're looking to the quarterback class of next year, to Stroud and Bryce Young and that group. So they're not going to be picking quarterbacks. So there's no need to jump into the Chargers spot, to get a quarterback. And, now look, there could be, like you said, a receiver, someone super high on. If Wilson tumbles or Olave tumbles and someone wants to jump up and get it, then I guess that could work.
I'm looking at like Green Bay at 22 money, like Green Bay at 22, like maybe they move up and get the guy for Rodgers, or, there's a host of teams that I feel like could say, okay, let's get that Traylon Burks, or let's get Olave. He's there. Who knows? But I'm looking at like the Packers, and the Chiefs have 2 first rounders really late. Packers have 2 first rounders really late. It's just
that could work. Not going to trade it
works.
to the Chiefs, especially if like Jameson Williams or Olave are sitting there.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're not appreciate it, Kansas City, but no, we're not.
No,
not looking
I'm
forward
saying,
to having you use our
I'm
pick
saying
for that
too,
guy.
if Kansas City moves up into one of that, like that New Orleans or that Philly spot to try to snag a receiver, or even shoot, man, there's just a ton of possibilities. I think like we've talked about 5 or 6 different positions that we'd be content with the Chargers selecting at 17. So I don't think this isn't like, okay, Justin Herbert at 6, Rashawn Slater at 13. This is like, we got several needs, and we'll get the best dude to contribute to this team.
And it's a deep draft. Yeah, and it's a deep draft. So yeah, you're right, Chris. I mean, why not? I think the one thing that's so important to remember is, picks are great, but they have to turn into players.
Have to.
They have to turn into play. Like, look, the Chargers just got Khalil Mack for a second. Bears fans are probably like, hey, this is great. You recoup a little bit of draft capital. You're in a rebuild anyway. Okay, but that second round pick in the middle of the second round has to turn into a player. Like we know what Khalil Mack is, and that's essentially what Les Snead and the Rams, what their philosophy became. It's like, well, these aren't players. These are picks. Now, if you do your homework and you draft wisely, yeah, they can turn into players, and cost-controlled players. And that's where so God, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth like crazy already in this thing.
Fine. It's what every GM's doing right now.
Yeah. So it's like, when you trade for, when you let's just say like when you trade for Matthew Stafford, right? Yeah. Okay. It's 2 first-round picks, but you're also trading for a $40 million contract. When you trade for Ramsey, like you're trading for arguably the best corner in the league, but you're also trading for a $25 million contract. Like that's where the draft pick comes in. It's like, oh, they only got Kayvon Chason and CJ Henderson for Ramsey. That's right, because they did a poor job. But if those 2 guys pan out, now you've got an edge rusher that's costing you $4.5 million a year and a corner that's costing you $5 million a year instead of 28 million and 22 million. So like that's where the value comes in for the teams that are trading away these veterans. And so I think that's kind of what gets so tricky about the draft process. It's like, oh, I've got this value. Do I go high floor, low ceiling? Do I take a big swing because, I've got the extra one and I'll take my big home run swing on Stingley and just cross my fingers and hope that he stays healthy, or Jameson Williams with the ACL and he'll bounce back and be the exact guy that he was? Like those are the conversations that I don't think we talk about enough, and how you value these picks. And, we're going to reference DJ a lot because look, he's just the best at it. I appreciate what everybody else does at every other place. I certainly do. And I think they're all very, so many of them are really good. Some of them flat out suck, but some of them are really good. Most of them are. But the thing that's so great about DJ is when he, and if you don't listen to the Move the Sticks podcast, be sure you do, because he does such a good job of walking you through what goes on in the room. Yeah. And it's like, in the first round, when you're assigning value, it is so important to hit on that first rounder. So important. Like when you miss on a first rounder, it's a big deal. And I think you're now seeing teams be a little bit more cautious. And it's like, you know what? If this is a double, fine. I'll take a double. Even though it's the first round and you want to hit a home run, as long as it's not a strikeout. Let me get a double and we're good. And I think that's where you see guys, that's where you see the value in players like Trevor Penning, right? Yeah. Like a Zion Johnson, the interior lineman. It's like, you know what? Is it a premium position, interior line? Not necessarily. And you feel good about what you can get in the second, third round. But you know what? My first rounder is going to give me a starting guard for the 5 years on his rookie contract, and hopefully we'll re-sign him. Like that, there's incredible value to that.
Especially like if we're just using right tackle as an example, and you got Rashawn Slater on one side, you got Justin Herbert back there. If you have just a high floor right tackle who's going to be a solid starter, man, think about what that would have done in 2021. If you bring in a Trevor Penning and just let him go to work, I mean, that's going to do wonders to the running game. It's going to give Justin an extra second and a half to make a decision. And then you get to grow him with Slater for the next 10 years.
Right.
So,
and look at what those guys are earning in the free agent market.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about guys that are making north of $20 million a year. And now you've got two of them, you know, that are in the single digit millions for 5 years.
Yeah.
Done. You can now go spend your money somewhere else because you hit a home run on Rashawn Slater. If you can just hit a double on your right tackle and not have it look like it did in that week 18 game against the Raiders, then you're good. You know, you are good. You have upgraded your offense incredibly.
We talked about linebacker, about first round potentially with Dean and Lloyd from Utah. Chargers made a move. They got Troy Reeder from the Rams, a guy Brandon Staley knows very well. I think he started 7 games in 2020 when Staley was the defensive coordinator, 10 games last year, 5 starts in the playoffs, played in the Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl in February. And, you know, that was a position that we thought was maybe lacking a little bit of depth now that Kaiser White has moved on to Philadelphia. Looks like Troy Reeder is going to be a big part of what they do at the linebacking core money.
Yeah, for me, I think so much of that too, though, is that Reeder's been a really good special teams player.
Yeah.
And kind of when you look at, you know, when the Chargers had some pretty darn good special teamers there for a while, it was, you know, Derek Watt, big body, great athlete. It was Nick DeZubner, big body, great athlete. Last year, who was their best special teams player? You know, you would probably say Nick Neiman, right? Sort of linebacker, big body, great. So I think Reeder really helps fix what's been a pretty disastrous coverage and return. Well, you know, the return's been okay, but coverage been a big issue. So I think, you know, a lot of that is also he's probably going to be a core 4 guy. So yeah, you get depth and someone. Look, he's the guy that came up with that huge play in the playoff game against the Cardinals. He was the one that hit Kyler Murray when he threw that interception up for grabs. So yeah, he's certainly. I'm not taking that away from him. He's definitely a rotational linebacker, but I think you get that enhanced value as well because he's been a really, really good special teams player for the Rams. It's
a great point. You 2 birds there, man. You get the linebacker, and then you get guys like that. And you know, we talked about that 2018 special teams unit so much with Adrian Phillips and, you know, Eckler and Watt have guys like
Zubner, that. Yeah, they were exceptional.
They were exceptional. So big time addition for the Chargers, both on special teams and defense. And then, hey, you answered the question about returner, right? DeAndre Carter comes in, and listen, I watched some Washington football team games last year. He was exceptional as a returner, but he also had some juice as a wide receiver too, which kind of leads me back to that first round wide receiver. If they can get a little bit from Carter as a wide receiver this year too, you know, maybe the Chargers are set there. I'm not saying they are, but I thought that he had a lot of game-changing plays for Washington last year. Now he comes in and hopefully can fill in what Andre Roberts did last year.
Yeah, look, Roberts was great. I mean, changed everything in the return game when he showed up. Completely, totally flipped the script on what the Chargers returns looked like. So we know how important that is. And it's great to have a guy with experience. You know, you draft a guy to be a returner and you just don't know. You don't know how he's going to respond. When we saw that, we saw guys with blazing speed. Gosh, help me out, Chris. Who was it that we had in the first week 2 years ago? It wasn't T. Billy. It was somebody else who was just incredibly fast, and they got the returner job in the first week. And I think they muffed the punt. They ran out of bounds on another.
It was an undrafted free agent, I think. And he was, God, we got to look this up.
I know. And he was like a 4.3 guy, and everybody was excited. And then he gets out there and the lights turn on and he freaks out. And, you know, that's something, you know, is not going to happen with DeAndre Carter. And it certainly didn't happen with Andre Roberts last year. So we talked about it last week, and yes, I'm stoked that they filled, you know, that vacancy, because it is important for this team. And we know how much juice Andre Roberts gave the Chargers with a handful of those returns.
I'm looking this up right now. It was 2018. I want to say it was against the Chiefs at Dignity Health Sports Park, right? So just bear with me here.
I'm looking for me. Works for me.
Caleb Sturgis, JJ Jones.
There it is, JJ Jones.
JJ Jones. That's who it was. He was a big name in training camp. He had the speed, and I think they gave him that opportunity to take that kick return position and run with it. And unfortunately, there was a couple mishaps in that game.
Exactly. And so like that's and I just bring it up because that's when you're drafting someone or when you're signing someone as an undrafted free agent, it's a different deal. You never know how they're going to react or their skill level when you take that big jump in level of competition. So much happier they went the veteran route there. And look, if you find someone in the draft and you draft somebody that's got special team, that's got returning experience, then great, put them back there, have a competition. No big deal. It's affordable contract on DeAndre Carter.
This first wave of free agency was wild with JC Jackson and Khalil Mack, but these are the types of moves, these understated moves with Reader and DeAndre Carter that happen a month into free agency that really shape your team and build out the special teams. And there may be another couple moves before the draft. Who knows? But
I mean, and you know what, Chris, I did jump in. I was going to say not to jump in, but I did.
Yeah.
Look, obviously it's a priority, right? They signed a new long snapper, sign a new punter, signed Dustin Hopkins to an extension. Now they've signed a returner. Like they signed Troy Reader. We mentioned all of the special teams experience and how good he's played. Like yes, they had to fix the defense. It was the worst third down defense. It was the second worst run defense in the league. They addressed all that, but they also had some rough numbers on special teams. So to address all of those things, and I think they're going to continue to do that in that third wave of free agency where you can get some value with guys like Reader, at special teams positions that you can help kind of fill that in as well, because they still have quite a bit of cap room, to even after signing their draft class, they still do have some wiggle room. A lot of that's going to depend on what and if a Derwin James extension looks like.
And, we did talk about the fact that there was a lot of rookies last year that had played for the first time and started playing well towards the end, especially, Nick Neiman's another guy, Money, that, we can maybe let's end on Nick Neiman, because we haven't talked about him as much as a linebacker on the defense. And I'm wondering if we will see more of him this year. And I think we're all aware of the impact that he had on special teams last year. And that could take another step as well. But I look at Nick Neiman as a nice piece for this team, maybe in 2022.
Yeah, look, I think this was last week that we talked about, or maybe the week before. And this week before, we brought up Amon, that you did have two young linebackers that perform well. Neiman got pressed into linebacking, into playing linebacker. I think he played, if I remember right, was it a Houston game? They ended up getting a bunch of snaps, but he played well when he was out there. I like Neiman. I think that's been a great, mid-round, late-round pick for Tom Telesco and his staff. It's turned out, even if just special teams, what he's been able to do. But I'm not surprised. And look, we mentioned this with Kaiser, right? Like, it's just not a premium position for this defense. As long as you have someone capable, they feel like those tackle numbers are going to be there, and they should be able to make plays because of all the talent they have on the line and all the talent they now have in the secondary. That linebackers should benefit from that, and you should not have to invest an incredible amount of money, for a top tier player. That you can get someone that you believe has high upside that may appear to be league average and could end up being exceptional in your scheme. So that's, and that's also goes back to the conversation we had about Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean, for the Chargers at 17 and why, that's an interesting conversation because they can use it, but is it a premium? And can you just wait, until the second round or if you trade back or to the third round and get like a Chad Muma out of Wyoming to be your Logan Wilson, of what, and that's not fair because they're both white guys and they're both from Wyoming, but they do look a lot alike. And I think a lot of it's because when you watch Muma, you see that wacky brown and yellow uniform that Logan Wilson wore as well. And you're like, yeah, he looks like that dude, and Wilson's become one of the great young linebackers in the league. So now, again, I keep saying it. It's what makes the draft so interesting. It's such a weird puzzle because there's so many different ways to make the pieces fit.
Yeah, and let's not forget about Kenneth Murray. 2 years ago, you draft up to get him, and he tweeted out the fact that he had surgery. And
yeah, that was interesting.
We're hoping that he comes back ready to roll in year 3. And I think, frankly, I think the staff is counting on it. When you don't really replace Kaiser, I mean, you bring in Reader, but I think him and Tranquil are really going to be given that first crack to be the first string linebackers and make a real impact. And we saw flashes with Kenneth, man, his rookie year. I still go back to the game they lost 45-0 to the Patriots, and just how he played in that second half, despite just being down so much, and the passion he played with and was all over the field. He's got that in him, and I'm hopeful a healthy season will be able to kind of translate what he's all about.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, like I said, we've seen it. It's just a matter of doing it consistently, because we know, if there's one thing in the NFL that you can't have, it's inconsistency, because inconsistency leads to a broken play, leads to a touchdown when the margins are as slim as they are, and you only play 17 games. That's so important. So for Kenneth, the talent's there, no question about it. It's just a matter of maybe getting completely healthy, so you don't feel so beat up week to week, that when you get back on the field, you can do what everybody knows you're capable of doing, and led you to be the top rated linebacker in your class, and the Chargers to move on from an extra pick, a second and a first, to get that number 1 to get them. So it's there. I'm not gonna argue with that. We all know it's there. It's just a matter of him hopefully putting it all together and finding it week in and week out, snap in and snap out.
2 more episodes Monday before the draft. Speculation season is almost over. I feel like it's been a longer window of speculation season this year.
I watched punters for an hour today, Chris. That's
exactly.
That's where we're at. That's where we're at as I get ready for all of our NFL.com and NFL Digital and NFL Network draft coverage that I'll be on with Lance and Cynthia. I think is going to be on there, and Bucky and all those guys. So very excited to be doing it. But again, if you want to talk about the glamour of doing draft coverage,
this is it.
Punters.
Hey, Money's doing it for
about
football
an hour and a half,
fans
2
everywhere,
hours.
And specifically Chargers fans. He's doing it for you guys.
That's right. Got my stopwatch. What's the toe to touch? Here we go. Boom. What's the hang time? Ooh.
We got some punters to clip off.
It's got a 4-3-1 hang time. I like that.
If the Chargers draft one of these dudes, we got some clips here.
Exactly.
I'll
be able to go, I love this guy.
We got to go back to our Chargers Weekly Tees, where Money was all in on the Penn State dude, the Illinois dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Nobody covers punters in the NFL draft like I do. So, and we got a modern day kid. We got a modern day kid that's going to end up probably on an NFL roster.
Colorado kid?
Ryan Stonehouse out of Colorado State. Yeah. So he's going to end up certainly in a training. He's going to end up in a camp. No question about it. He's got a big old leg. But again, Blake Hayes, that's my guy. Crocky, the Aussie. That's who we're going for.
Write it down. We start with punters. We end with punters.
Right.
That'll do it for us.
What a tease.
We'll see you next Thursday. For Money, I'm Chris.